Today I'm in Kazimierz, the area that for over 500 years was the centre of Jewish life in Krakow. There's been a Jewish community in Krakow for almost 1,000 years. In 1495, the Jews were expelled from the city of Krakow and moved en masse to the nearby city of Kazimierz. It became one of the most influential cities in Poland. So a good place to start if you're doing a tour of the former Jewish district of Kazimierz is this square here, which is called Szeroka. And if you come in from the top end there, you'll pass the WWII Synagogue. And you walk down the square, there are Jewish restaurants and bars. And there's a Jewish bookstore. And then at the bottom end here you've got the old synagogue, which is now a museum. By the time the Nazis invaded Poland in 1939, there were 64,000 Jews living in Kazimierz. They would all be forced to live in the Jewish ghetto on the other side of the Vistula River. This is interesting. I don't know how long this has been there, but it's been covered up to preserve it in memory of the Bozak family, residents of Kazimierz, 1633 to 1941, so over 300 years. This family, Jewish family, lived in Kazimierz, and then in 1941 they would have been sent, I would imagine, to the Krakow Ghetto. This is the Isaac Synagogue, which appears to be going under some kind of restoration work. And to be honest, 2 years ago when I visited this area, it was you couldn't go in then either. In 1939, one of the members of this synagogue was executed inside after he refused to burn it down. And the synagogue is named after its founder, Isaac, who had a dream that if he went to Prague, he would find lots of treasure buried underneath a bridge. So he listened to this dream and he went to Prague and he found the bridge, and policeman was suspicious, so he asked him what he was doing, and he explained that he'd had a dream about finding all this treasure underneath a bridge in Prague. The policeman mocked him and said, "I had a dream that I went to Krakow and found loads of treasure in the stove of a rabbi called Isaac." So Isaac went back to Krakow, looked behind his stove and found loads of treasure, became the wealthiest man in Kazimierz. Out of the almost 70,000 Jews that lived in the Kazimierz district before World War II, it is estimated that only 3,000 to 5,000 of them survived the war, a majority thanks to Oskar Schindler. As Poland fell under communist rule, the area fell into decline and was considered by the 1970s to be one of the most dangerous districts in Krakow. After the fall of communism in 1989, there was new hope for the area. New investment started to come in, and Jewish life started to return. 4 years later, Steven Speilberg came to the area to shoot the movie Schindler's List, placing Kazimierz back on the world map. For an area that was once considered to be one of the roughest in Krakow, Kazimierz is now a hip area with bars, restaurants, cafes. It's as much as a must visit in Krakow than the Wawel Castle. Some of you may recognise the street from the movie Schindler's List. So I think this is the scene where the young boy comes down the stairs and he finds his one of his Jewish friends and her mother, and he hides them because the Nazis are coming. He can hear the Nazis heading in this direction, and so he hides them. I think that's here. Kazimierz wasn't just home to Jewish people. In fact, Jews and Poles lived alongside each other for many years. Despite the cultural differences and language barriers, the Polish were relatively tolerant of Jewish culture. Right in the heart of Kazimierz is this huge Catholic church, which is probably one of the most impressive churches in Krakow, to be honest. Let's go inside and take a look. In 1939, the Nazis registered almost 69,000 Jews living in Krakow. Of these, approximately 52,000 were deported to labour camps. The remaining 18,000 were marched across the Vistula River to the newly formed Jewish Ghetto. The area had previously been home to just 3,000 people who were forced to resettle elsewhere. 19,000 Jews accommodated the same living space. Buildings that faced the outside of the ghetto had their windows blocked, and the 3-metre wall was erected. This building here used to be on the edge of the ghetto, and all the windows would be bricked in so that the people inside couldn't interact with the people outside. And in that corner house there lived a gentleman and his young son. And one night, the father had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. So he managed to sneak his young son outside and tell him to get out of Krakow and go and try and find somewhere to live outside the city. The boy was taken in by a Christian family and stayed there, pretending to be a Christian. His name was Roman Polanski. This square was the largest open space in the Krakow Ghetto. It gave Jews an opportunity to socialise and to escape the confinements of their accommodation. It was also the scene of mass deportations, deaths, executions and beatings. The square is now home to this memorial, which features 70 evenly spaced chairs, each chair representing 1,000 people that passed through the Krakow Ghetto. The chairs symbolise departure and absence. At the corner of the Ghetto Heroes Square is Eagle Pharmacy. Tadeusz Pankiewicz suddenly found himself in the middle of a Jewish ghetto, and he was allowed to stay. He was the only Polish guy that was allowed to stay. And seeing the horror unfurl from the windows of his pharmacy, he began to help Jews, falsifying papers, helping them avoid deportation, bringing food and documents. He's recognised today as a righteous amongst the nations. Situated just outside the ghetto is Factory Emailer, and this is where Oskar Schindler gave work to many Jews and ultimately saved their lives. So this is the only part of the ghetto wall that remains. You can see how high it is, and also how the ghetto wall was purposely designed to look like tombstones. It's almost like they were basically letting the Jews know what their fate was. So where I'm stood now, there used to be an orphanage. The building's not there anymore. On the 28th of October 1942, the Nazis removed over 200 Jewish children and their caretakers who had refused to let them go. The children under the age of 3 were shot in an unknown location. Everyone else were deported to the Belzec death camp and murdered there. May the 9th, 1942 was the start of 10 days of terror for the prisoners of Krakow Ghetto. Nazis surrounded the area and all documents were inspected. Prisoners that could not provide work permits were rounded up and deported to Belzec death camp. Unsatisfied by the numbers, the Nazis declared all documents invalid. Prisoners now had to apply again for a blue pass. The majority were declined, and they too were sent to Belzec death camp. In just 10 days, 7,000 Jews were sent to the death camp. Many more were simply shot in the street. In the meantime, work was beginning on a nearby concentration camp. As thousands more people were deported to death camps, the size of Krakow Ghetto reduced by half. The ghetto was split into Ghetto A and Ghetto B. Ghetto A would be where the able-bodied, fit prisoners would stay. Ghetto B would be those who were deemed not fit for work and destined for deportation. Shortly after arriving at Płaszów as camp commandant, Eamon Goworth ordered that all residents of Ghetto A be moved permanently to Plaszow Concentration Camp. So this is just on the edge of the actual camp, and this would be storage. It's a place where Nazis would keep uniforms, cargo. Now, unlike at Auschwitz, there are no guided tours of Płaszów. There's no museum, because basically most of it was destroyed. The Nazis did a really good job of hiding the evidence of their crimes at Płaszów. Basically everything was destroyed, so there's nothing left to see apart from memorials and information boards telling you what happened on certain sites. And just here, this would be the main entrance to the camp. This is where a pre-burial hall used to stand for the Jewish community of Krakow, and the Germans blew it up in 1944. Now, most people coming to Krakow have heard of Auschwitz, and for many of them it's part of their Krakow itinerary. Not everyone has heard of Płaszów, although it's more famous than people might think. Because the movie Schindler's List was based on the Płaszów Concentration Camp and the Krakow Ghetto. If you've seen the film, you'll remember the camp commandant Eamon Goworth in his villa randomly shooting Jews. Well, that villa is on this street, and this is it. So last time I visited, it was almost in ruins, but clearly someone has bought it and done it up and now living there. The Red House. This place is the Grey House, and because the concentration camp was basically built on former Jewish cemeteries, this used to house the committee of the Jewish cemeteries, and during the time of the camp, and German officers' flats were in here, and it also had a prison downstairs in the basements. So this is the site where mass executions would take place. One of the examples was when 10 people were brought here because one person had escaped, and so to make an example and to frighten the other prisoners, they brought 10 random people here, and one of them was a mother with a 7-year-old son. And witnesses said that they heard the son saying to his mother that he was scared of dying and did it hurt, and she told him that it would only hurt for a very short while and then he'd be free. He was 7. On March the 14th, 1943, Nazis surrounded the Krakow Ghetto. Anyone remaining in the ghetto was to be rounded up and sent on cattle trucks to a death camp. By this point, the people in the ghetto knew that deportation meant death. So when the Nazis entered the ghetto to round people up, chaos ensued. People who tried to resist, people who tried to escape, were simply shot on the streets. It's estimated that between 2,000 to 3,000 people died this way. The rest of the camp inhabitants were put on trains and sent to Auschwitz. This is another site of mass executions. Mainly Polish prisoners who were brought here, executed, and then their bodies burnt on funeral pyres. It's estimated that approximately 150,000 people spent time at Plaszow Concentration Camp. When the camp was liquidated in 1945, all the remaining prisoners were sent to Auschwitz. As the Soviet army approached, the camp was dismantled. The bodies were exhumed and burnt, and the ashes scattered across the site.
Also los, Bewegung! Schneller hier! Ich will euch bewegen!
Das geht auch schneller.
Los, raus mit den Betten, die kleinen Teile, lass liegen!
When the Russians arrived, what they would have found was pretty much what you see today. Well, I'm getting wobbly legs just being stood here, because just there's a huge drop. This is the Liban Quarry, which was set up by a couple of Jewish industrial families in 1873, and it became a penal camp. 800 Polish people were held here, performing forced labour. And this site is actually where Schindler's List was filmed, because Spielberg didn't want to use the actual camp out of respect for the people that died there. So he filmed the scenes inside the camp in this area. So temporary barracks were set up, and there is somewhere around here a road with Jewish gravestones. It's completely fake, it's not real, it was made for the film. So this is the path that has been made up of Jewish gravestones, but they are all fake. They were put down by Speilberg when he was filming Schindler's List. Now, this is where it gets interesting. It does say if you come down here that you enter at your own risk. Well, that's probably as close as I'm going to get, to be honest. Oh, someone's up there. How do you get up there? I think I've kind of found my way. I made it. Well, I didn't think I'd be able to make my way here when I was stood at the other side of the quarry. There's no directions or anything. It's this place really has been left to ruin, as you can see. Now, it does say you're not supposed to go up. And to be honest, the only way I can get in is through these stairs here. I don't fancy that much. What an incredible place. Oh wow, look at the street out there. The girl. Now this one does actually have a spiral staircase. And it's accessible. Still feels pretty sturdy. But it's creepy as hell, this place. Wow. Really got to be careful here. It still feels pretty strong, to be honest, but I need to check. Need to check everything I step on, make sure it's strong enough. I don't know why, but this is actually really scary. I'm presuming that it's the same kind of thing in these as what it is in there. There's some steps here. That doesn't look too clever. I'm getting scared just looking at it. It's just creepy. I mean, this is right in the middle of bloody nowhere. Right in the middle of this huge quarry in Krakow. Don't know how I've never come across this before. Content's not that important, guys, I'm sorry, but my legs are wobbling just looking at that. You can see what you've got to watch out for is this. You're walking along here and then suddenly this goes from underneath your feet. You're screwed. No one passing around here. Despite the fact that that was creepy as hell, the actual area is stunningly beautiful. It's really, really nice. And then I'm coming to this now, which is Krakow Mound. There's quite a few people up here. Maybe they're waiting for the sunset. Sun's going to disappear over there pretty soon. So here we are. I think there are 4 mounds in Krakow. And I've not been to any of them. So let's see what the view's like. So these are the views from Cracus Mound. See the bridges going over into Kazimierz there, and the old town, which is over there. Let's do a 360. You can just see the old quarry down there, that's where I've just come from. Cracus Mound was the last place on my itinerary for today, so it's now 5 o'clock. I've seen everything I wanted to see. It's been a great day again. Incredible long day. We've done the Jewish district, we've done the Jewish Ghetto, we've done the concentration camp, we've done the quarry and also the mound. So a lot done today. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to return to the Jewish district. I'm going to check out some of the bars down there, because they do have some wonderful bars in the Jewish district. And I just looked at my phone and I'm 31 minutes walk away. So, and I don't even know which direction. I suppose I better check Google Maps and find out where the hell it is I'm supposed to be going.
Nie, ale ja...